stole everything and disappeared with nothing.
September 5th, 1695. Somewhere in the Mandab Strait, off the coast of Yemen, the Ganjai Sawai listed hard to port. Smoke filled the lower decks. Blood mixed with seawater on the planks. Henry Every stood on the quarterdeck of the Fancy, watching his men pour onto the Mogul treasure ship like ants onto a carcass. He was 41 years old. His hands weren't shaking. They should have been. The morning had started calm. A clear sky. Light winds from the northeast. The kind of day when you could see 20 miles in every direction. Every had spotted the Mogul ship at dawn, 3 hours ago now. The chase had been short. Brutal. Efficient. In the hold of that ship, gold coins stacked in wooden chests. Silver bars wrapped in silk. Jewels that had belonged to the Mogul emperor's own family. Rubies the size of bird eggs. Emeralds cut in the workshops of Agra. Diamonds that caught the light like fragments of stars. The equivalent of $200 million in today's money. The greatest heist in history. Every watched a sailor emerge from below decks, his arms loaded with pearl necklaces. Another man carried a chest so heavy it took 3 others to help him lift it over the gunwale. Gold coins spilled onto the deck. Men laughed, shouted, embraced each other. They didn't understand what they'd done. Every did. Every had just signed his own death warrant. And theirs. The thing that was supposed to make them rich beyond imagination guaranteed they could never spend a single coin. To understand how this happened, we need to go back 18 months. January 7th, 1694. The port of La Coruña, Spain. Snow fell on the docks. Thin, wet snow that turned to slush under boots. The Charles II sat at anchor, a 46-gun privateer with a rotting hull and unpaid crew. Henry Every stood on deck, watching ice form on the rigging. He was 40 years old. Every wasn't supposed to be a pirate. He'd never wanted to be a pirate. He was a first mate. A legitimate sailor. Legal rating. Government sanctioned. Letters of marque signed by Spanish officials giving them permission to attack French merchant vessels. Prize money split according to contract. Officers got shares. Common seamen got wages. The owners got rich. That was how it was supposed to work. Every had been at sea since he was 15 years old. 25 years of service. He'd sailed to the Caribbean, the African coast, the Indian Ocean. He'd fought in naval battles, survived storms, watched men die from scurvy, dysentery, violence, and he had nothing to show for it. The Charles II had been sitting in La Coruña for 6 months. The Spanish owners had promised wages, promised prize money, promised supplies. The promises never materialized. The crew hadn't been paid in 8 months. They were starving, selling their shoes for bread, sleeping in shifts because they didn't have enough hammocks. Every had £3 to his name. £3. After 25 years at sea, he did the math. Simple arithmetic. Stay on the Charles II, £0, 0 shillings, 0 pence. Eventually starve or die of disease in a Spanish port. Be buried in a pauper's grave. Be forgotten. Take the Charles II, everything. Every had been thinking about it for weeks. Watching the crew grow thinner. Watching men cough blood into their hands. Watching hope die in their eyes. He started talking to other sailors. Quietly. Carefully. Feeling them out. William Bishop, the quartermaster. 28 years old. Owed 9 months' wages. John Dan, gunner's mate. 34 years old. Wife and 3 children in Plymouth. Hadn't sent money home in a year. Thomas Borridge, able seaman. 22 years old. Joined the Charles II thinking he'd make his fortune. Instead he was starving. One by one, Every built his conspiracy. By May, he had 45 men. Nearly the entire crew. All of them desperate. All of them willing to risk the noose for a chance at something better. May 7th, 1694. 3 in the morning. Every moved through the ship in darkness. The captain, Charles Gibson, was drunk in his cabin. He was drunk every night. The officers were ashore. Only a skeleton watch remained. Every didn't storm the ship, didn't fire weapons, didn't make noise. He simply gave orders. Men moved to their positions. The anchor was weighed with cloth wrapped around the chains to muffle the sound. Sails were unfurled. The Charles II drifted out of the harbor on the tide. By the time anyone realized what was happening, they were 3 miles offshore. Captain Gibson stumbled on deck at dawn, still drunk. Found Every at the helm. Asked what was happening. Every told him, "I am now captain of this vessel. You may remain aboard as a passenger or be put ashore. Your choice." Gibson chose the shore. They rowed him to the coast in a longboat. Left him on the beach with his sea chest. He stood there, watching the Charles II sail away, and didn't move for 20 minutes. It was the cleanest mutiny in naval history. No shots fired. No blood spilled. No violence at all. Every renamed the ship Fancy. He was elected captain by unanimous vote. Not appointed. Not seized power. Elected. The crew drew up articles. A contract. Rules for how the ship would operate. Every man got 1 vote on major decisions. Prize money divided by shares. Captain got 2 shares, officers got 1.5, able seamen got 1, boys got half. Compensation for injuries. Loss of right arm, £600. Loss of left arm, £500. Loss of leg, £400. Loss of eye, £100. It was a democracy. At sea. In 1694, Every treated his men like partners. Not servants. Not cannon fodder. Partners. That was the foundation of everything that came after. May through July 1694. The Fancy sailed south along the African coast. They needed supplies. Needed more men. Needed weapons. Every knew he couldn't go to major ports. Word of the mutiny would spread. So he stopped at small harbors. Fishing villages. Places where governors didn't ask questions. He recruited carefully. Every was charismatic. Tall, well-spoken, intelligent. He explained his vision, a pirate crew run like a legitimate business. No torture. No unnecessary violence. Fair shares for all. Vote on targets. Men signed up. By August 1694, the Fancy had 90 men. By October, 120. By December, 150. Word spread through every port from the Caribbean to Cape Town. Henry Every pays his crew. His reputation grew. Not as a bloodthirsty killer. As a fair captain. A smart captain. A captain who gave a damn if his men ate. December 1694. The island of Johanna, off the coast of Mozambique. Every met Thomas Tew. Tew was a legend in pirate circles. An American privateer who'd turned pirate in 1692 and made £8,000 raiding in the Red Sea. He'd retired to Rhode Island, lived like a gentleman for a year, then gotten bored and gone back to sea. Tew was 51 years old. Experienced. Respected. He commanded the Amity, a 70-ton sloop with 45 men. They shared drinks, traded stories, discussed opportunities. Tew told Every about the Mogul treasure fleet. Every year, 25 ships sailed from Surat, India, to Mocha, Yemen. They carried pilgrims making the Hajj to Mecca. The fleet was owned by the Mughal emperor himself, protected by imperial guards, escorted by East India Company vessels, loaded with treasure, gold and silver for trade, jewels as tribute, offerings for the holy sites, the wealth of the richest empire in the world, sailing through narrow straits with predictable timing. Tew had raided the fleet before. In 1693, he'd captured a Mughal ship and taken £100,000. Split among 45 men, each sailor received over £2,200. A fortune. Life-changing money. But two wanted more. He was getting old. Wanted one last big score. Every listened. Did the math. The Mogul fleet traveled through the Mandab Strait in late August or early September. Narrow waters. Limited maneuverability. A dozen possible targets. If they caught just one of the smaller escort vessels, they could walk away with 10,000 pounds to 20,000 pounds. Split among 150 men, that was 60 pounds to 130 pounds per sailor. Enough to retire. Enough to disappear. Enough to start a new life. Every called a meeting. January 3rd, 1695. Every man on the Fancy assembled on deck. Every laid out the plan. Showed them charts. Explained the route. Detailed the risks. The Mughal Empire had 150 million subjects. 1 million soldiers. They were attacking the personal property of the most powerful man in the world. If caught, they would be executed. Slowly. Publicly. But the money. The crew voted. 150 men. 150 votes. Unanimous yes. They set course for the Red Sea. February through April 1695. The Fancy sailed east across the Indian Ocean. Every drilled his crew daily. Gun practice. Boarding drills. Hand-to-hand combat. He ran the ship like a navy vessel. Discipline. Order. Preparation. He knew they'd only get one chance. The Fancy was fast, the fastest ship in the Indian Ocean. Every had careened her in Johanna, scraping the hull clean of barnacles and weed. She could make 12 knots in good wind. Most merchant vessels made 6 or 7. Speed was their advantage. But speed wasn't enough. They needed more ships. More men. More firepower. Every sent messages to other pirate captains. Thomas Wake on the Susanna. William Want on the Dolphin. Joseph Farrow on the Portsmouth Adventure. Richard Want on the Pearl. All of them agreed to join. By late April, 7 pirate ships sailed together. 400 men total. 65 guns combined. The largest pirate fleet in the Indian Ocean. April 28, 1695. The fleet reached the Mandab Strait. They waited. The strait was 40 miles wide at its narrowest point. Rocky coast on both sides. Strong currents. Dangerous waters even for experienced sailors. Every positioned his ships to cover the main shipping channel. They flew false colors. Dutch flags, French flags, British flags. Anything to avoid immediate recognition. And they waited. May passed. No Mughal fleet. June passed. Supplies ran low. Water rationed. Tempers flared. July passed. Some captains wanted to leave. To find other targets. To give up on the treasure fleet. Every convinced them to stay. August 1695. 3 months of waiting. The crew was restless. Angry. Starting to doubt. Some men talked about mutiny. About deposing Every and finding easier prey. Every stayed calm. Showed them the charts again. Explained the timing again. Convinced them to wait just a little longer. August 11th, 1695. Sails on the horizon. The Mughal fleet. 25 ships sailing in loose formation. The Ganges Sawai in the center, easily identifiable by her size. Escort vessels around the perimeter. Smaller pilgrim ships scattered throughout. Every called all captains to the Fancy. They met in his cabin. Spread charts on the table. The plan was simple. Pick off one of the smaller escort vessels. Something they could take quickly without alerting the rest of the fleet. Grab what they could and run. That was the plan. But then they spotted a straggler. The Fateh Muhammad. A Mughal ship carrying 50,000 pounds in gold and silver. She'd fallen behind the main fleet. Alone. Vulnerable. Every signaled the attack. August 11th, 1695. 10 in the morning. The Fancy bore down on the Fateh Muhammad at full sail. The Mughal ship tried to run. Couldn't. The Fancy was too fast. The battle lasted 5 hours. The Fateh Muhammad had 40 guns, but her crew was poorly trained. Merchant sailors, not naval fighters. They fired their broadside too early. Most shots missed. The Fancy closed the distance. Every brought the Fancy alongside. Grappling hooks flew. Ropes went taut. Pirates swarmed over the gunwales. The fighting was vicious. Close quarters. Cutlasses and pistols. Men screaming. Dying. By 3 in the afternoon, it was over. The Fateh Muhammad surrendered. Her captain was wounded. 30 of her crew were dead. Evry's men ransacked the ship, found chests of gold coins, bars of silver, bolts of silk, spices worth a fortune in European markets. Total haul, £50,000. Split among 400 men, £125 per man. A seaman's wages for 3 years. Not a fortune, but enough. More than enough. Life-changing money for men who'd never had anything. Evry called another meeting that night. All 7 captains gathered on the Fancy. They should leave. Immediately. Take their prize and disappear. The math was simple. They had more money than they'd ever dreamed of. Staying meant risking everything for uncertain gains. Evry knew this. Every man present knew this. Thomas too argued for leaving. We have £125 per man. That's enough. We take this and retire. Live like gentlemen. We stay, we risk losing everything. Joseph Farrow agreed. The main fleet knows we're here now. They'll be prepared. They'll have guards posted. We've lost the element of surprise. Evry listened, nodded, then looked at his charts. The Ganjai Sawai was still out there. The Emperor's personal ship. The treasure of the Mughal Empire. Evry did the math. The Fateh Muhammad was a secondary vessel and carried £50,000. The Ganjai Sawai would carry at least 5 times that. Maybe 10 times. £250,000 to £500,000. Split among 400 men. £625 to £1,250 per sailor. Enough to retire as wealthy men. Enough to buy estates. Enough to never work again. Evry put it to a vote. The captains voted to stay. 4 in favor. 3 against. Democracy in action. They would hunt the Ganjai Sawai. August 12 through September 4, 1695. 24 days of searching. The pirate fleet followed the Mughal fleet north through the Red Sea. Stayed at a distance. Waited for an opportunity. The Ganjai Sawai was massive. 1,600 tons. 3 times the size of the Fancy. She carried 62 guns. 400 matchlock rifles. 800 passengers including nobles, court officials, soldiers, merchants, and servants. And the Emperor's granddaughter. Evry studied the ship through his spyglass. Noted her movements. Her patterns. How she positioned herself relative to the other vessels. She was always in the center of the formation. Always protected. September 4, 1695. Evening. A storm blew in from the east. Not a hurricane. Just strong winds and rain. But enough to scatter the Mughal fleet. Ships lost sight of each other in the darkness. Formation broke down. By morning, vessels were spread across 50 miles of ocean. The Ganjai Sawai was alone. September 5, 1695. Evry spotted her at first light. 10 miles north. Sailing slowly, waiting for the rest of the fleet to catch up. This was it. The opportunity. Maybe the only one they'd get. Evry called his crew to stations. Signal flags went up. The other pirate ships acknowledged. 7 vessels. 400 men. Converging on the richest prize in the Indian Ocean. Thomas II's Amity led the attack. He was the most experienced. The most respected. His crew had raided the treasure fleet before. The Amity approached the Ganjai Sawai from the starboard side. Two stood on the quarterdeck, calling orders. His men primed their guns. Loaded ball and chain shot designed to destroy rigging. The Ganjai Sawai opened fire first. The distance was too great. Most shots missed. But one, a single cannonball, hit the Amity's bow. The shot wasn't remarkable. Wasn't well aimed. Pure chance. It went through the forward gunport and hit Thomas II in the abdomen. Tore him in half. The Amity's crew saw their captain die and immediately retreated. No discussion. No vote. They turned and ran. Every watched through his spyglass. Saw the Amity break off. Saw the other pirate ships hesitate. The attack was falling apart before it began. Every ordered the Fancy forward. Full sail. Every gun loaded. His crew hesitated. If two couldn't take the Ganjai Sawai, how could they? Every didn't explain. Didn't justify. Just gave orders. All hands to battle stations. Gun crews ready. We're taking that ship. The Fancy cut through the water at 12 knots. The fastest ship in the Indian Ocean, bearing down on the largest ship in the Mughal fleet. The Ganjai Sawai's captain, Ibrahim Khan, saw them coming. Ordered evasive maneuvers. The massive ship turned slowly, ponderously, trying to bring her broadside to bear. Too slow. The Fancy closed to 200 yards. 100 yards. 50 yards. The Ganjai Sawai fired her broadside. 40 guns. Simultaneous discharge. Enough firepower to sink 3 ships the Fancy's size. Most of the shots missed. Poor training. Panic. The gun crews were merchants and servants pressed into service, not naval fighters. But 3 cannonballs hit the Fancy. One punched through the hull above the waterline. Another destroyed the ship's boat. The third hit the mainmast. Should have shattered it. Should have brought the mast down and crippled the Fancy. The mast held. Every ordered the Fancy alongside. Grappling hooks flew. His men swarmed the gunwales. That's when the Ganjai Sawai's mainmast snapped. Not from the battle. From structural failure. The mast was rotted at the base. Weakened by years of salt water and neglect. The stress of the evasive maneuvers was too much. The mast came down in a cascade of splintering wood and tangled rigging. Crushed a dozen men on deck. Blocked the starboard guns. Created chaos. The Ganjai Sawai's gun crews panicked and fled below decks. The rifle crews dropped their weapons. The captain, Ibrahim Khan, a man who'd been given command because of his family connections, not his ability, abandoned his post and hid in the hold with his concubines. The defense collapsed. Evry's men boarded. 150 pirates against 800 passengers and crew. But 800 people who weren't fighters. Who'd never expected to be attacked. Who'd been told the Red Sea was safe. The battle on deck lasted 20 minutes. Pirates moved through the ship methodically. Professionally. Evry had trained them for this. Control the deck. Secure the officers. Find the hold. By 9 in the morning, the Ganjai Sawai was taken. Then Evry's control of his men ended. What happened in the lower decks over the next 6 hours, Evry never wrote it down. Never spoke of it. None of the surviving accounts from his hand mention it. But the Mughal court records were explicit. Rape. Systematic. Organized. Women pulled from their cabins. Nobles' wives. Merchants' daughters. Servants. The emperor's granddaughter was among them. Some women threw themselves overboard. Jumped into the Red Sea rather than be captured. Drowned in their heavy silk robes. Others were murdered after. Throats cut. Bodies thrown over the side. Men who tried to intervene were killed. Passengers who fought back were shot or stabbed. By the time Evry managed to restore order, it was afternoon. The damage was done. Evry had wanted a clean heist. A professional operation. Take the money and leave. Instead, he'd presided over a massacre. But the hold. In the hold of the Ganjai Sawai, 600,000 gold and silver pieces. Each gold moher worth 15 shillings. each silver rupee worth 2 shillings. The coins alone were worth £325,000. Then the jewels, rubies, emeralds, diamonds, pearls, ornate jewelry that had belonged to the Mughal court, pieces commissioned by the emperor himself. Conservative estimate, £100,000 additional value. Total, £425,000. Every stood in the hold, looking at the fortune. Did the math. Split among 400 men, £1,062 per sailor. A seaman's wages for 40 years. Ordinary sailors were now richer than country gentlemen. They had everything they'd ever wanted. They could never go home. September 6, 1695. Morning. Every ordered the treasure loaded onto the Fancy. It took hours. Chest after chest of coins. Bags of jewels. Bolts of silk and bales of spices added as afterthoughts. The Ganges Sawai sat low in the water, listing to port, her mainmast gone, her decks stained with blood. Every wanted to sink her. Destroy the evidence. But the other pirate captains refused. They were already nervous. Already talking about how wrong things had gone. They set the Ganges Sawai adrift. Left her floating in the Red Sea with her surviving passengers and crew. The pirate fleet scattered. Each captain taking their share. Each ship going a different direction. Every set course south. Back toward the Indian Ocean. Away from the Red Sea. Away from the scene of the crime. His men celebrated. Got drunk. Counted their shares over and over. £1,000. £1,000 each. They couldn't comprehend it. Every stood alone on the quarterdeck. Did the math. The real math. They'd stolen from the Mughal emperor. The most powerful man in the world. A man who ruled 150 million people. Who commanded armies larger than all of Europe combined. The East India Company operated in Mughal territory by the emperor's permission. That permission could be revoked. Would be revoked. The British government would have to respond. Would have to hunt every down. Had to. Otherwise, they'd lose access to Indian trade. £600,000 in annual trade revenue. The entire imperial project in Asia. Threatened by one pirate. Every was no longer just a criminal. He was a diplomatic crisis. The cascading collapse began immediately. First problem, the scale. September 12, 1695. The Ganges Sawai limped into port at Surat, India. 7 days after the attack. 7 days of drifting with a broken mast. The passengers and crew had been eating ship's rats. Drinking rain water. Dying of thirst and infected wounds. When the ship docked, the survivors poured off. Told their stories. Described the attack. Named the British pirates who'd raided them. Word spread through Surat within hours. By evening, mobs surrounded the East India Company factory. Thousands of angry citizens. Demanding justice. Demanding blood. Mughal officials threw every British merchant in the city in prison. Didn't matter if they were involved. Didn't matter if they were innocent. They were British. That was enough. September 15, 1695. News reached the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. He was 77 years old. The most powerful ruler in the world. He'd been on the throne for 37 years. Conquered kingdoms. Executed rivals. Built an empire that stretched from Afghanistan to Tamil Nadu. And British pirates had raided his personal ship. Stolen his treasure. Raped his granddaughter. The insult was incomprehensible. Aurangzeb issued orders immediately. All British trade suspended. All British citizens in Mughal territory to be arrested. All East India Company factories to be shuttered. If the British government didn't deliver the pirates, alive, he would execute every British citizen in India and ban British trade permanently. The ultimatum was clear. September 28, 1695. News reached London. The East India Company sent emergency messages to King William III. Explained the situation. Detailed the threat. The company's trade with India was worth £600,000 annually. That was gross revenue. Net profit was £200,000. Enough to fund the Royal Navy for a year. Lose India, lose the company. Lose the company, lose the government's primary source of foreign revenue. Evries' heist had just endangered the entire British imperial project. October 7, 1695. King William III issued a royal proclamation. Henry Evrie and his crew were now the most wanted men in the world. Reward: £500 for Evrie. £200 for information leading to his capture. The first wanted poster with a physical description: height about 5 feet 10 inches. Inclinable to be fat. Complexion somewhat ruddy. Brown hair. A man of few words. The first international manhunt. The first global warrant. Every morning, the proclamation was read in every port in the British Empire. Every ship leaving London carried copies. Every colonial governor received orders: find Henry Evrie, dead or alive. The British government mobilized 3 naval squadrons, 15 ships, 2,000 men. Their sole mission: hunt pirates in the Indian Ocean. Evrie wasn't just a pirate anymore. He was a threat to the British Empire itself. The Royal Navy had destroyed pirate havens before. Tortuga. Port Royal. Madagascar was next. Second problem: the crew. October 1695. The pirate fleet regrouped at Réunion Island, off the coast of Mozambique. 400 men with £1,000 each. Most of them were illiterate sailors who'd never seen more than £10 at one time. Who didn't understand banking. Didn't understand economics. Didn't understand that carrying that much gold would attract attention. Evrie tried to explain. Called a meeting. Laid it out simply. We are the richest pirates in history. We are also the most wanted men in history. Every government in Europe is looking for us. Every port will have spies. If you walk into a tavern and start spending gold coins, someone will notice. Someone will report you. You'll be arrested. Hanged. Some men listened. Most didn't. The crew got drunk. Started fights. Bought out entire warehouses. Walked into shops and paid for everything with Mogul gold coins. Within 3 days, word spread through Réunion: the richest pirates in history had just landed. French officials wrote letters to Paris. Portuguese spies took notes. Dutch merchants sent messages to Amsterdam. The net was closing. Evrie saw it happening. Couldn't stop it. His authority had ended the moment they divided the treasure. He was just another pirate now. Richer than most, but no longer in command. October 15, 1695. Evrie made his decision. He split from the main fleet. Took the Fancy and 24 loyal men. Men who'd been with him since the Charles II. Men who understood the danger. They headed west. Toward the Atlantic. Toward the Americas. The plan was simple: reach the Bahamas. Bribe the governor. Obtain a pardon. Disappear into the American colonies. It should have worked. Colonial governors were notoriously corrupt. Pardons were sold routinely. The Bahamas were lawless. Evrie had £20,000 in gold and jewels. Enough to bribe anyone. Third problem: the gold itself. Mogul gold coins were distinctive. Each one stamped with ornate Persian calligraphy. Specific weight. Specific design. Easily identifiable. Evrie knew this. Told his men repeatedly: melt the coins down. Recast them. Make them anonymous. Don't spend Mogul gold. Most of the crew ignored him. They didn't understand the danger. They thought gold was gold. Money was money. They were wrong. April 14, 1696. A sailor named Thomas Hollingsworth walked into a tavern in Virginia. He'd been part of the original Fancy crew. Had his share, £1,000 in Mogul coins. He'd sailed from Réunion to the Caribbean, then to the American colonies. He thought he was safe. Hollingsworth ordered drinks. paid with a Mogul gold moher. The tavern keeper, a man named Samuel Burgess, recognized the coin immediately. Burgess had been to India, worked for the East India Company. He knew what Mogul coins looked like. He knew about the reward. Burgess called the authorities. Hollingsworth was arrested within 2 hours. April 16, 1696. Hollingsworth was interrogated. He broke immediately, gave names, locations, described the attack, detailed who was where. The Virginia colonial governor, Edmund Andros, sent letters to every other colony, to the Caribbean, to London. The manhunt accelerated. April through August 1696. 24 pirates arrested. The pattern was always the same. Someone spent Mogul gold. Someone recognized the coins. Authorities were called. Edward Forsyth, arrested in Philadelphia. May 2, 1696. John Dan, arrested in Boston. May 18, 1696. William Bishop, arrested in Charleston. June 3, 1696. One by one, Every's crew was caught. The British government offered immunity for information. Pirates betrayed each other. Named accomplices. Described the heist in detail. October 25, 1696. 6 pirates hanged in London. The executions were public. Held at Execution Dock on the Thames. Thousands attended. The condemned men were paraded through the streets in carts. Given a chance to confess. To repent. Some did. Some didn't. The hangings weren't clean. Weren't quick. The drop was short, designed to strangle, not break the neck. Men kicked and struggled for minutes before dying. The bodies were left hanging in gibbets. Iron cages suspended over the river. Left to rot as a warning to other pirates. By 1700, only 5 of the original Fancy crew were still at large. Henry Every was one of them. Fourth problem: the money was useless. June 10, 1696. Every landed in the Bahamas. He sailed the Fancy into Nassau Harbor flying British colors. Claimed to be a legitimate merchant vessel. The harbormaster didn't ask questions. Governor Nicholas Trott received Every in his mansion. Trott was 52 years old. Corrupt even by colonial standards. He'd been selling pardons, licenses, and land grants for years. Every offered him £7,000 in presents and considerations. A fortune. More money than Trott would make in 10 years as governor. Trott accepted. Issued a pardon to Henry Bridgman, Every's alias, for unspecified acts of piracy in the Indian Ocean. Legal. Official. Signed and sealed. Every thought he was safe. He wasn't. July 15, 1696. News of the Mogul heist reached the Bahamas. The British government sent orders. All pardons related to the Ganjai Sawai attack were void. Anyone who'd raided the Mogul fleet was to be arrested on sight. No exceptions. Governor Trott read the orders. Looked at Every's pardon. Did the math. If he protected Every, he'd lose his position. Possibly face charges himself. If he turned Every in, he'd keep the £7,000 and maybe collect the £500 reward. Trott chose option 2. He denied ever meeting Every. Claimed the pardon was a forgery. Kept the £7,000. Every fled the Bahamas on July 18, 1696. Took 6 loyal men. Left the Fancy behind. The ship was too recognizable. They boarded a merchant vessel bound for Ireland. Paid the captain to not ask questions. Traveled as passengers. Every had £20,000 remaining. Enough to live like a king for the rest of his life. He couldn't spend any of it. August 1696. Every reached Ireland. He tried to fence some jewels. Found a merchant in Cork who dealt in stolen goods. Showed him emeralds worth £5,000. The merchant offered £200. Every negotiated. Argued. The merchant wouldn't budge. Take £200 or leave. Every took the £200. Then the merchant reported him to the authorities. Collected the reward. Every ran again. To Scotland. To Edinburgh. Tried to sell more jewels. Same pattern. Offered pennies on the pound. Then reported. He ran again. September 1696. Every reached London. He rented a room in Whitechapel under the name John Taylor. Paid 6 months in advance with Portuguese gold coins, not mogul. Kept his head down. Stayed inside. He had £18,000 in gold and jewels hidden in his room. Under the floorboards. In a false bottom of his sea chest. Sewn into his mattress. He couldn't use any of it. The gold was too recognizable. Spending large amounts would attract attention. Every merchant, every shopkeeper, every tavern owner had been told to watch for suspicious wealth. Every tried to livy on his £200. Bought cheap food. Wore old clothes. Tried to blend in as a common laborer. The richest poor man in England. He contacted old associates. Men he'd sailed with. Men he trusted. Asked them to fence jewels. To exchange mogul gold for British currency. They took his money. Disappeared. Or worse, they cheated him. Paid 10% of value. 5%. Then reported him anyway. By December 1696, Every was down to £15,000. He'd spent £3,000 trying to launder £5,000. The mathematics were impossible. January 1697. Every moved to a cheaper room in Southwark. He could see the Thames from his window. Watch ships come and go. He'd spent 25 years at sea. Now he was trapped on land with a fortune he couldn't touch. Every morning, he read the broadsheets. Every morning, more arrests. More executions. More of his crew caught and hanged. The network was collapsing. Each arrested pirate gave up names. Each name led to more arrests. Every stopped going outside except at night. Stopped talking to neighbors. Became invisible. February 12, 1697. 5 more pirates hanged at Execution Dock. Joseph Dawson. Edward Forsyth. William May. William Bishop. James Lewis. Every knew all of them. Had sailed with them. Divided treasure with them. The broadsheets described their executions in detail. How they'd confessed. How they'd begged for mercy. How they died slowly, strangling at the end of a rope. Every read every word. March 1697. Every tried one more time to fence the jewels. He contacted a merchant named Edmund Crisp. Crisp had a reputation. Would buy anything, no questions asked. Every arranged a meeting. Brought diamonds worth £10,000. Crisp examined them. Offered £800. Every needed the money. Accepted. Crisp paid him. Then reported him. Every ran again. Left everything behind. The jewels. The gold. All £15,000. Disappeared into London with nothing but the £800 in his pockets. April 1697. The last confirmed sighting. A man matching Every's description was seen boarding a coach to Devon. Destination: Plymouth. Every's hometown. After that, nothing. No records. No arrests. No bodies. No confirmed sightings. The most wanted man in the world simply vanished. The what-ifs are haunting in their simplicity. What if Every had stopped after the Fateh Muhammad? The numbers are clear. £50,000 divided among 400 men, £125 each. Not life-changing wealth, but enough. More than enough. A sailor making £20 per year would need 6 years to earn that much. The Mughal emperor wouldn't have cared about £50,000. Wouldn't have even noticed. The Fateh Muhammad was a secondary vessel. Losing it would have been embarrassing, not catastrophic. No international incident. No manhunt. No diplomatic crisis. Every and his crew could have sailed to Madagascar. Divided the spoils. Retired to the American colonies or the Caribbean. lived out their days in peace. But they didn't stop. They wanted more. What if Every had attacked any other ship? The Indian Ocean was full of targets. Dutch East India Company vessels carrying spices and silk. Portuguese traders with silver from Brazil. French merchants with manufactured goods. Any of them would have provided a decent haul. 10,000 pounds. 20,000 pounds. 30,000 pounds. Enough to make the voyage worthwhile without provoking an empire. But Every chose the biggest target. The most valuable ship. The one that belonged to the most powerful man in the world. What if the Ganjisawai's mainmast hadn't snapped? Pure chance. Structural failure. The mast was rotted at the base. Could have failed any time in the previous year. Happened to fail during Every's attack. If the mast had held, the Ganjisawai would have maintained maneuverability. Her gun crews wouldn't have panicked. Her captain wouldn't have fled. The ship was more heavily armed than the Fancy. 62 guns to the Fancy's 46. With an organized defense, the Ganjisawai would have driven Every off. The battle Every won by accident would never have happened. What if Every's crew had listened to his warnings? Every told them. Repeatedly. Explicitly. Melt the coins. Don't spend Mogul gold. Don't attract attention. If they'd listened, if they'd been patient and careful, some of them might have survived. Might have slowly laundered their fortunes over years. Might have lived out their days in anonymity with their wealth intact. But they didn't listen. They got drunk. Spent freely. Attracted attention. And died on gibbets in London. What if Governor Trott had honored the pardon? Every paid him 7,000 pounds. A legitimate bribe by colonial standards. The pardon was legal. Properly issued. Should have been binding. If Trott had protected Every, he could have disappeared into the American colonies. Changed his name. Started over. He had the money. Had the pardon. Had the opportunity. But Trott chose the reward over his word. Chose political survival over honor. Every lost everything. But the biggest what if is the one no one considers. What if Every had been less successful? His reputation for fair treatment attracted the best crews. Men signed up specifically to sail with him. Word spread, Henry Every pays his crew. Henry Every votes on decisions. Henry Every compensates injuries. By the time he reached the Red Sea, Every commanded the largest pirate fleet in the Indian Ocean. 400 men. 7 ships. The best pirates available. His intelligence and planning made the heist possible. He studied the Mogul fleet for months. Knew the route. Knew the timing. Positioned his ships perfectly. His leadership convinced 400 men to attack the most valuable ship in the world. To take a risk that should have been suicidal. Every's virtues guaranteed his downfall. A crueler captain would have had fewer men. Word wouldn't have spread. The fleet would have been smaller. The attack on the Ganjisawai would have failed. A dumber captain would have missed the fleet. Would have been in the wrong place at the wrong time. The opportunity would have passed. A weaker captain would have been overthrown by his crew. Voted out. Replaced by someone else before reaching the Red Sea. Every succeeded because he was too good at being a pirate. The irony was complete. The last confirmed sighting of Henry Every was April 1697. After that, he vanished. The theories are endless. The evidence is zero. Theory 1. Every died in poverty in Devon. Captain Charles Johnson's A General History of the Pirates, 1724, claimed Every returned to his hometown of Plymouth with his fortune. Tried to sell his jewels through intermediaries. The intermediaries cheated him. Paid pennies on the pound. Then disappeared. Every died alone in a rented room. Penniless. Starving. With 15,000 pounds in jewels hidden under his bed that he couldn't sell. The jewels were found after his death. Turned over to authorities. His landlord collected the reward. Johnson's account is detailed. Specific. Includes names and dates. It's probably fiction. Johnson invented or embellished most of his pirate biographies. But it might be true. No one knows. Theory 2. Every escaped to Ireland. Parish records in County Cork show a Henry Bridgman died in 1699. Age listed as 45 years old. Cause of death: fever. Henry Bridgman was Every's alias in the Bahamas. The age is approximately correct. The timing works. But Henry Bridgman was a common name. No evidence links this death to Every. Could be coincidence. Theory 3. Every made it to Madagascar. Multiple pirate accounts from the early 1700s mention a wealthy English pirate living in the interior of Madagascar. A man who never went to ports. Who lived like a king. Who paid local chiefs for protection. The man was never named. Never seen by European sailors. Just rumors. Third-hand accounts. Could have been Every. Could have been anyone. Could have been completely fictional. Theory 4. Every returned to London and hid in plain sight. The easiest place to hide is in a crowd. London in 1697 had 500,000 people. Easy to disappear. Easy to become anonymous. If Every had ditched the mogul gold, just walked away from it, he could have lived as a common laborer. Worked on the docks. Blended in. Died in obscurity decades later. No records. No arrest. No execution. Just another nameless sailor in a city full of sailors. Theory 5. Every was caught and executed in secret. The British government had a problem. Every was famous. The most wanted pirate in the world. If they caught him and hanged him publicly, they'd make him a martyr. A legend. Better to kill him quietly. Secret trial. Secret execution. Secret burial. No records. No publicity. No legend. Just eliminate the problem and move on. This theory has no evidence. But it's plausible. The government did similar things to other politically inconvenient prisoners. The truth is no one knows. The most wanted man in the world simply ceased to exist. No body. No grave. No confirmed death. He became a ghost. The legend of Henry Every grew in his absence. Within 5 years, he was the most famous pirate in the world. Ballads were written about him. Pamphlets sold on London streets. Plays performed in theaters. The Successful Pirate, premiered in 1713, portrayed Every as a romantic hero. A man who defied empires and won. The play was banned after 3 performances. Too subversive. Daniel Defoe wrote about him. Described Every as the arch-pirate. The man who pulled off the greatest heist in history and vanished. The legend eclipsed the reality. People forgot about the rape. The murder. The destruction of the Ganj Isawai. They remembered the treasure. The audacity. The escape. Every became a symbol. Proof that a common man could strike back at empires. Could take wealth from the powerful. Could win. The irony is that Every probably died poor and afraid. Hiding in some rented room, unable to spend his fortune, watching his crew get executed one by one. But the legend didn't care about reality. The legend endured. The consequences of Every's heist lasted decades. The British government spent £50,000 hunting Every and his crew. Deployed 15 naval vessels. Arrested hundreds of suspects. Executed dozens. Never found Every. But they found almost everyone else. By 1705, only 2 members of the Fancy's crew were still alive and free. Every and one other man, identity unknown. The East India Company paid the Mughal Empire £600,000 in reparations. Compensation for the stolen treasure. Apology for the attack. Bribe to restore trading privileges. It took 3 years to negotiate. The company nearly went bankrupt paying it. The Mughal Empire never fully trusted the British again. Every subsequent treaty included provisions about piracy. About British responsibility for their citizens' actions. About consequences. The attack on the Ganj Isawai poisoned relations for a generation. Piracy in the Indian Ocean was effectively destroyed. The British Navy hunted pirates relentlessly, destroyed havens, executed crews, made examples of anyone caught. The golden age of piracy in the Caribbean continued for another 20 years. But in the Indian Ocean, it ended with he was too successful, made piracy too expensive, too politically dangerous. The British government couldn't afford another Henry Every, so they made sure there wouldn't be one. September 5, 1695. The Ganj Isawai burns on the horizon. Henry Every stands on the deck of the Fancy, 41 years old, watching his men load chest after chest of gold and silver. 325,000 pounds in treasure. More money than any pirate in history has ever taken. Around him, the crew celebrates, shouts, embraces. They count their shares. 1,000 pounds. 1,000 pounds each. A fortune beyond comprehension. They don't understand yet. Don't see the mathematics of their situation. They've stolen from an emperor, made an enemy of 2 empires, marked themselves for death. Every coin they spend will be a risk. Every transaction a potential betrayal. Every port a trap. The fortune in the hold isn't wealth. It's a prison, a sentence, a death warrant signed in gold. Every sees it, does the math, understands completely. He could stop this, could throw the treasure overboard, could sail away and pretend this never happened. But he doesn't. The crew wouldn't let him. They'd mutiny. Take the treasure anyway. The outcome would be the same. So Every says nothing. Just watches. Lets it happen. His hands still aren't shaking. Should be. But aren't. He's calm. Analytical. Already planning the next move. How to reach the Bahamas. How to obtain a pardon. How to disappear. Already running the numbers. Already seeing the paths forward. All of them lead to the same place. Every knows this. Has to know this. The math is too simple. Too clear. But standing on that deck, watching the sun set over the Indian Ocean, seeing his men laugh and drink and dream about the lives they'll buy with their fortunes, Every doesn't tell them. Doesn't warn them. Doesn't explain. Just lets them have this moment. This one moment of pure victory before reality catches up. Because tomorrow they run. And keep running. Until they're caught. Or until they die. Or until they vanish like Every himself. The greatest heist in history. The biggest treasure ever taken. The perfect crime. And none of them will ever spend a penny of it in peace. Every watches the Ganj Isawai drift away. Listing. Broken. Abandoned. In 6 days, she'll reach port. The survivors will tell their stories. Word will spread. The manhunt will begin. Every knows this. Every man on the Fancy knows this, whether they admit it or not. They knew the risks. Voted to take them. Made their choice. Now they'll live with it. For however long they have left. The wind shifts. The Fancy turns south. Sails away from the scene of the crime. Behind them, smoke rises from the Ganj Isawai. A pillar of black smoke visible for 20 miles. A signal. A marker. The place where 400 pirates became the richest men in the world and simultaneously signed their own death warrants. Every doesn't look back. Just gives orders. Sets course for Madagascar. First stop on a journey that will end in obscurity or death. Probably both. His hands still aren't shaking. They never will. Even at the end, wherever, whenever that is, Every will remain calm. Analytical. Running the numbers until the very last moment. That's who he is. That's who he was on the Charles II in Spain. That's who he was leading the mutiny. That's who he was hunting the Mogul fleet. And that's who he'll be when it all falls apart. Full. Collected. Watching his perfect plan collapse into chaos while maintaining absolute control of his expression. They were doomed from September 5, 1695. They just didn't know it yet.